So I realized after watching the last video that I didn't really cover everything that I wanted to. I covered the whole life experience thing, or whatever we want to call it, but I didn't get into what other things we've been doing. And by we, I mean my oldest son and I. And to give a quick overview of the shop work area, whatever you want to call it, that I work in. And so I thought I'd do that real quick and maybe answer a few questions that come up all the time in the comments and emails that are sent. So let's do that real quick. So this is the metal lathe that I use, and this is for primarily the rings and a few machining things that I do that are geared towards making my life easier with the pin turning. Just to the left of that, I have a small bandsaw. This is one of the like $130 models by Win that you can get off Amazon. A small clamp that I use for the pins. Bandsaw. Drill press that I've had for 20 years. It's a little rusty. Kind of deal with it the way it is. And then there is a, let's see if I can pull that out a little, a disc and belt sander right here. I use that for the pin work as well. Other little things that make life easier with the pins, such as that, to make sure the ends are flush. Here are two of the lathes. This is a Pin Pal from Penn State. This is the one that we started with for the pins. It's really small, as you can see. It's solely made for turning pins and other really small items. Mostly pins because it's mandrel based, not like a regular lathe. Honestly, this thing is shockingly good. Torque isn't wonderful on it. You can stop it from spinning pretty easy, but it works incredibly well, especially when it's like $149 or something like that. I mean, incredibly good price for this thing. This lathe is the one that my dad used, and we've pulled that from his house to over here, and that's what we've been using to do the larger items. We haven't worked up to any bowls or anything yet, but we have done, or my oldest son has done, some other things besides pins on it, and he really likes it. Alright, over here, wood storage. Almost all just pin blanks, pin kits, more pin kits up there, blanks that I'm making that are hybrids or just straight epoxy, clamps, and then down at the bottom shelf, and the shelf is actually from the storage unit too, is a bunch of other wood that just hasn't been cut down to be used yet. Currently just use a bucket for other things. I mean, we've got some antlers, some larger pieces of burl. Not sure if I'm going to turn that into a tabletop, maybe. A small table. I have an idea of where to put it in the house. Or if it's just going to be cut down into pins. We'll see how it goes. Hope to do it this year. So this is the area where I do the resin for the blanks, the pin assembly, as well as the hybrid setup to be able to prep those for epoxy. I also brought out some of the pins and other things we've done. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Alright, so this is an example of one of the hybrids after it's finished, where it's wood and resin. Most of these others are woods. Here's a segmented, I'm sorry, that's not segmented, that's a single piece. These are called teacher's pins, because it's a red and a black. Here are some keychains, and they all unscrew. You can place extra cash, maybe your medication, whatever, into those. Then we have some others. Most of these are hybrids, such as this. It's manzanite and a little bit of epoxy resin there at the end. Here's another hybrid. That's from Buckeye Burl, to give you an idea. And I've been fiddling, rip that tag off. I'll have to take care of that. And I've been fiddling around with some other composites with 3D printing. like that. And this is what I've called the honeycomb. And this was incredibly popular around Christmas. We have a lot of people in the area that have hives, and this went over quite well. I got a fairly good color match to the honey in the area, and I have my own way of creating the honeycomb pattern. This is not a natural honeycomb, but it is using recycled material. I might do a video on that if there's any interest. And then there's a bunch of other items. This is a perfume or essential oil applicator, and it comes off like that. I'm not sure if you can see it. There we go. So I call this gold dust. So I create quite a few hybrid blanks, and that is basically taking a piece of wood that would otherwise not have been used. It would have been relegated to a fireplace somewhere, if I can hold on to it. Strip this down, cut it down, and then mix epoxy resin or Alumilite or royal palm, kind of depends on my mood and what specifically I'm doing, and turning it into usually bricks like this. Alright, so after I have this, I can cut this down into pieces, or just from the beginning I can pour smaller pieces. That are like this. And then those get turned into the pins that you saw a few minutes ago. There's some other things besides wood that can be used. Here's an example. Can't see that very well on camera, but this will actually go over that in a video or two. So different things that would otherwise be considered trash or just thrown out can be turned into pretty much anything. So here's another section of wood. These are the larger pieces than what's in the other area for turning. They've been cut down. Some oddball things like cholla, I think is how I was told to pronounce this. It's from a cactus. Magnolia pods. I've done a few pins with that. Other things up here, little pieces of wood. Wasp nests, all kinds of stuff. So I've been working with various things to come up with different kinds of blanks, and a dehydrator that's used for a quick method of drying out the wood before I either stabilize or create the hybrids, and I also use it for something else that I've been doing around here. I've been working with 3D printers for several years, but a few months ago I picked up a resin printer, and it's the SLA method instead of the filament style, and it uses a epoxy resin basically that's UV sensitive, and it cures under UV light, and you can create some highly detailed down to 25 micron little figures or various other parts. I've used it to create a few utility items, as well as I've started printing RPG characters for some local people and pretty much anyone online. Check out the Etsy store if you play RPGs and you have a figure you'd like to have printed. Anything that can fit in there to print, I can take care of it for you. Just send me a message or check out the listing on Etsy. I've even started to incorporate the resin prints with the pin work to create some custom pins. So I'll do some videos on that in the future, but to give you an idea of what is possible, this would be one of the resin hybrids with their resin printed insert. So I get a lot of questions about the work area for the tie-dye. This is a table. I'll try to put a link in the description if I remember. We all know how that goes. And it is available from Amazon. It's got 3 leaves that open up. One here and then one on the back side. Sorry, 2 leaves, front and back leaf that open up, and a extra large shirt fits nicely on here. And that's what I've been using for, I think, almost every single video. Now, to keep this clean and to guarantee that I'm not going to contaminate with a different color dye than I plan on using, this is only used for tying. I never use this tabletop for dyeing. So that's just a regular tabletop that I do the dyeing on. This is sinew. This is the string, rope, twine. I've seen it listed as any number of things. This one happens to be the natural brown color. I've also used it in black primarily over the last couple of years. I switched to this because it was cheaper when I bought it. So what is this? Sinew would be basically like a catgut type of material. This is not natural. This is a polyester. It is waxed and it is flat. And if I could find the end of it, I would show that to you. There we go. So, let's see if I can actually, there we go. So that's what it looks like. This is a 300-yard roll, I believe. Pretty sure. This lasts quite a while. And it goes for anywhere from $12 to like $20 on Amazon. So it's really cheap, to be quite honest, for as long as it lasts. Some people reuse this and wind it on basically a bobbin that they use to pull everything taut. I just use this itself. It actually works well in my hand, but I do plan on creating some of the bobbins. I don't think that's the word, but that's what my brain is telling me it is right now. I plan on turning a few of those and offering those for sale on Etsy as well, and I'll let you know when those have been put out there. One of the, I guess, number 3 question or so that I'm asked is, why can't you use a rubber band instead of the sinew? Well, you can in some designs and it works okay. Other designs, rubber band works better. Just kind of depends. But if you're trying to pull something really tight, sinew's your only real option. You can get there with the rubber band if you keep struggling. With sinew, each time you go around an item, you can actually continue to pull and it'll tighten on itself, and when you let go, it stays tight because of the wax. It doesn't loosen. You can cut this end and it will usually not come loose while it's sitting around. You can even pull off washing it with the sinew in place a lot of times and it doesn't come off. So it's well worth the expense of buying this. Another question I'm asked a lot is about the soda ash that I talk about, that everything's soaked in. It is completely necessary or the fiber reactive dye will not bond to the fabric. This is soda ash. You can get it at your grocery store. You can get it at dollar stores. You can get it pretty much anywhere. Even online, although you'll pay for shipping and it's not cost effective. It's what, 3.5 pounds or so, and it's like $3. This will last you an incredibly long time. You mix it about 1 cup per gallon, roughly, and that's your what you use to soak the shirts in for 20 minutes or so before you start. You can also buy this in 50-gallon buckets, 30-gallon buckets, 50-gallon buckets. I'm sorry, not 50-gallon buckets. 50-pound buckets, 30-pound buckets, and 50-gallon drums if you're really into messing with soda ash. It is advisable to use gloves when you're using this. Some people's skin does not respond quite as nicely to it as others. I usually don't. Sorry, it just doesn't bother me much, except for the winter, and then it'll dry out your hands. And it does feel slippery when it's in solution in the bucket with the clothes. So I think that covers the majority of the questions that I'm asked a lot. Hope that does it. Hope you, I don't know, enjoyed seeing the area that I work in. If you have any questions, let me know. There won't be many changes within this probably for the next year or so. If the turning, woodworking, and all that expands enough sales-wise, then I might consider doing another shop just for that, which would free up this room back to being almost exclusively the day job of photography. That would be nice because some of this other stuff really gets in the way and I have to keep stuff clean and get dust off of equipment before I use it for the photography. So it should be it. Go ahead and check out the Etsy page. I'd really appreciate it. Let's face it, the monetization on Facebook isn't what it used to be. So if you enjoy watching the videos, I'd appreciate you checking out the Etsy page, seeing if there's anything you're interested in, especially since everything will be, all of the tie-dyed stuff will be 30% off this weekend only. I have a Patreon listed in the description. If you enjoy the videos, I'd appreciate you considering donating to the Patreon, becoming a patron. There we go, actually got that right. Any of that type of stuff, I'd really appreciate it. Hope to have a tie-dye video next week. If not, it will be some other video. Thanks for understanding about the last few months and not being able to put out new stuff and my burning through all my backup material. I appreciate all the responses I received from last week's video about the channel update, and look forward to continuing to make videos for y'all. Thanks, and see you next week.